Brilliance Audio presents Pack by Mike Bockoven, performed by Pete Simonelli. Stuart Dietz wasn't a broken man. Sure, his girlfriend had left him a couple of months ago without as much as a raised voice or a shattered dish. Sure, he had been dismissed from the Detroit Police Department after all but being laughed off the force. Sure, as the subject of a viral video, he had been both publicly and privately shamed and couldn't get a goddamn drink in a bar without having someone point and laugh, or worse, point and whisper. Sure, he had devolved from a man hanging on week to week, month to month, into a man who had procured the bitter stank of failure and desperation, a man whose very existence was an apology. But Stuart Dietz wasn't a broken man. At this point, he wasn't much of anything. After 7 years on the Detroit Police Department, Stu had run into what fellow officers affectionately called a very bad day. It started with a drug bust gone wrong, where a suspected drug dealer had removed the suspected part of his title by throwing his stash in the air after Stu had tried to arrest him. The stash became airborne, and Stu, being a human who breathed, had started the day unexpectedly high, his gums numb and heart racing. His partner, a sensible spark plug of a woman named Officer Reagan Anson, but Regs to her friends, had tried to send him home, but Stu was having none of it. He would power through. It was the sort of cop he was. A domestic dispute later that morning ended with a drunk man vomiting on Stu, which ended up being a nice appetizer for the main course of his very bad day. They rolled up on a grade school-age kid who was standing in the middle of the road with a very real gun, waving it around. The boy had screamed about his mother taking away his iPad, and Stu had done his best to calm him, which gave onlookers time to gather and fire up their smartphones. Footage of the incident existed from multiple angles, and they all showed Stu trying to calm the kid down, but failing as the kid continued to scream and gesture with the gun. By the time the kid shot himself in the chest, there were more than a dozen cameras trained on the boy and then on the cop who tried desperately to perform CPR and bring the boy back. What Stu remembered more than anything was something the camera couldn't show. The moment after the gun went off, the boy, pudgy and dirty, clearly a product of neglect, had widened his eyes and stared at Stu, every part of him screaming, "I wish I could take this back." Memories of the boy's eyes had burrowed into Stu's psyche and stayed there, returning again and again, giving the cop no respite, hollowing him out emotionally. Then came the aftermath. Of course, there was an official investigation that basically cleared him of wrongdoing, but it wasn't the official stuff that really twisted Stu's guts. It was the everyday stuff. It ruined his day when people yelled at him from passing cars on the street. It sucked in a big bad way when his Facebook profile was hacked and flooded with photos of the dead kid in the middle of the road. And he drank a little more the night his mother told him the ladies at the church were talking. But, as he told his sister over the phone, it was happening to him, but in some way it felt like it was really happening to somebody else. "They're only cliches because they work," she had said. And she was right, like always. Since they were kids, Stu and his sister Dana had shared an odd relationship. She was 2 years older, and while Stu had always been solid, if a little timid as a boy, it was clear from the time she was a toddler that Dana could track, kill, and eat her own food. She was the person you wanted on your side in a fight as long as you were absolutely sure that she was going to land on your side. One defining moment in their relationship centered around Stu getting in a scuffle at school in a hallway where bad things frequently happened. He was giving as good as he got in the way boys fight to maximize movement but minimize the possibility of someone actually getting hit. The fight was almost over and Stu was starting to let up, only to be jerked up by his hair hard by Dana and thrown into the corner. She was mad at him for making a scene and embarrassing her, so she decided to end it. The kid Stu was fighting had run off, and dinner was a very awkward affair that night.